One of the other things I'd like to show you is how to work an umbrella. Luckily, anytime you need to use an umbrella, you are going to be standing on something. And it took me a long time to realize that the very easiest way to open an umbrella is to just put the point down on the floor and find the little button that you need to push and just push down. What could be simpler? So there you have it. That's the way you open an umbrella. Now let's close it up. And the way to do that is to punch it, bring it down, and if you want to snap up the, if you want to snap the snap, I often go like this to hold it. Find where the snap is, and holding it against your body, you can bring the cord around until you come to the end and then snap it. So that works out pretty nicely. One thing to remember though is that if you're carrying an umbrella, you're carrying an umbrella. That means your hand is occupied. That means when you walk up to open a door, you've got this to mess with. Some of them have shoulder straps, and that's convenient, but you'll find that when you're wearing something with a shoulder strap, every time you lean or move, you've got this thing sliding around, and you might have a shoulder bag. In fact, you probably should have a shoulder bag if you're trying to carry anything at all. So it's not exactly convenient to have an umbrella, but in really heavy rain, you might find that you want to, so at least you know how to open and close it. What you'll find is that it's a lot handier to just have a good rain hat, so that might make more sense for you. To put on a stocking cap, sometimes you'll be able to just put it on your head and pull it down, but often that's not possible because the elastic is makes it a little bit too small. So what you want to do is just start it on your forehead, and again, luckily, anytime you're putting on a hat, you are virtually sure to be close to a wall. So all you need is a wall here. Put it on your forehead like this, lean your forehead against the wall, and just pull the back over your head. And you've got it. While we're on the subject of hats, I'll show you how it works using a rain hat like this one. Often when you're putting something on, when a person with two hands would grasp both sides, you're going to grasp it in the middle. So that's just a natural thing that you'll do when you're dealing with an object like this. And so what I wanted to show you, after I turn this back so you can see, a lot of times you'll have something that closes with this little, not sure what it's called, a toggle or something, but anyway, I'm holding the bottom of the cord while I press in and move this up. So you have to do it in a couple of steps, but that's the way it works. So you might be putting on a hat or just an ear warmer that you'd like to put on when you're outside and you're not next to a wall. So this is something that can maybe show you how that works, this little fur ring. It's possible sometimes to just put it on your head, far enough down on your forehead that you can swoop the whole thing over your head. This works pretty well sometimes. If I can get it grasped on my forehead down at my eyebrows, then I can take the rest and then pull it down. So it's handy if you can do that in case you're out, skiing or hiking or whatever. All of your friends know, I hope, that if they lose one of their gloves, you might be able to use the other one. So I've had a couple of times when someone came up and said, I feel a little silly, but do you mind? I just lost the right-hand glove, and if you'd like to use the left, fine, or vice versa. So it does seem a little silly to buy a pair of gloves when you're only using one, but that's usually what you have to do. It's awkward to pull on a glove using your teeth. But on the other hand, if you like a small, close-fitting glove, for instance, when you're driving, sometimes you just have to do that. This is one of those little stretchy gloves that has a little bit of leather lining on the inside, and the only way I know to put it on is to start my hand right like this and pull on the inside seam, and I can get it on. So that works really well and quickly, and this kind of glove I really want to be able to wear sometimes. How are you going to take this glove off? Easiest way to do it, one way to do it is again with your teeth, but you don't really want to be putting your teeth on the place where your fingers have been. might be dirty. So what I've often done is to stand like this and put the glove between my knees, and it pulls off really easily. It's a gesture that hardly anyone will notice. Everyone else is taking off hats and coats and scarves, and you lean down for a little bit and pull off your glove, and it works just fine. What you might find the easiest is a large mitten. In fact, this is the right mitten of a pair that my son had, and when he lost the left mitten, he very nicely donated this to me. And so here we've got a really simple situation. You can just work your hand right into it, and again, when you want to take it off, if you have to, you could put it in your mouth, but it's a lot easier to go down, clamp it between your knees, and pull your hand out, and that's it. Sometimes it takes you a little while to come up with a good idea. I think I spent about 20 years putting toothpaste on my toothbrush like this. So, it helps if you have one of those toothbrushes that has a sort of soft rubbery back. But anyway, after I'd done that for a long time, it occurred to me that if I have a toothbrush holder, I could leave the toothbrush in the holder and put the toothpaste on like that. And of course that works equally well if you have an electric toothbrush that that stands upright, and they stand upright even when they're not in the little stand for recharging the battery. So it works just fine to do it like that. And of course, if you're traveling and you don't have a clean surface and you don't know what else to do, you can always go back to holding it with your teeth. In the bath or shower, you really have a little bit of a problem. You'll find that, it's a little hard to wash your whole back. A lot of people hold a washcloth at each end, using, one arm like this and the other arm is up there. And since you can't do that, you'll find it really is hard to reach every part of your back, even if you're fairly nimble. You can just about do it. So obviously for that, it's nice to have just a soft bath brush, one that's with nylon netting or with whatever you like. That's one problem, but that one's easily solved. How to actually wash your arm is a little bit more complicated. You can't always have, a spouse or a family member there to do it for you. And so you want to be able to improvise a little bit. And the thing that I've found that works is to put this wet washcloth over my knee while I'm sitting in the tub, and even just washing the back of your hand that way, washing your wrist, on up your arm. You've got to get off the loose skin on all of these surfaces. So you can get your elbow really well going like this and on the inside of the arm, and you just go on down. And you do have to be a little bit limber probably to try to get everything here. But as you can see, I can get all the way to my upper arm, and meanwhile this cloth stays really stable because it's wet on my knee. So that works just fine, and then I usually pick up the cloth and do the top of my shoulder also. So that combined with bath brush for your back, you really don't have any problem doing whatever you need to do. In the shower, a little bit harder to get to your arm, so you can sit down to do it outside the shower or whatever. One of the things you really want to think about is how to arrange and wear your clothing, because one of the most difficult things about having one arm is feeling self-conscious about it and having other people around you feel a little awkward. And for people who know you well, very soon they won't even be thinking about it. But for people that you're just seeing for a short time, people who you're just walking past, if you feel self-conscious and if they're looking kind of shocked when they look at you, that's kind of a complicated thing to deal with. So what I'd like to show you is just a couple of things that you can do with clothing that make it a little less noticeable for people who are just seeing you briefly, so that you can feel a little bit more comfortable, and in fact a lot of people just won't notice at all. First of all, when you're buying clothing, sometimes you'll notice that the description will say that it is a fully fashioned sleeve, and I've figured out that what that means is that it's not a raglan sleeve, one that has no seam and just drapes on your shoulder, but a fully fashioned seam is one that has a seam right here on your shoulder. And that works a little better because it holds its shape a little bit more. And basically what you're trying to do is just not to violate that idea of kind of symmetry of having two arms. That's something that just looks right to people, obviously. And so you want to just create that same kind of idea with the left sleeve or right sleeve. And one of the ways to do that is to at least begin with a shoulder seam so that the sleeve hangs in a pretty natural way. Another idea that can really help is to think about what happens right here. As you can see in the blouse that I'm wearing, the blouse sleeve stays pretty close to the bodice, so it's not real noticeable that the sleeve looks different on this side. The way I've done that is to use a metal pin, which I can pull out and show you. I got this from a stationery store, and it's just a giant paper clip that's made to hold a big sheaf of papers, and I use it by slipping it inside the blouse with one part of the clip in the sleeve and the other part inside the blouse, and that clamps these two together and holds them together a little bit further down the bodice. If I don't have this paper clip in, as you can see, you can have a pretty big gap there, and it just makes it more noticeable that the sleeve is empty. So I've just keep a whole packet of those clips in my dresser, and I often leave them in the blouse or leave them in the jacket. And as I put this in, as you can see, it's there inside the blouse, the inside of the clip, and the other part of the clip is down inside the sleeve, and so the two are now held together. So that's one thing that works pretty well. Another thing that I often do is to pin the sleeve so that you don't have a sleeve just moving loosely. That makes it less noticeable if it's pinned. Often I've got an article of clothing that has a pocket there. I look for things with pockets a lot, but now and then I have something I'm wearing, it doesn't have a pocket. There are a couple different things that I could try. Sometimes I unzip the side zipper and actually just put the sleeve in, pretending that it's a pocket, and zip it up a little bit. That can work, and sometimes it stays without being pinned, and sometimes, just to be sure, I go ahead and pin it. And in order to do that, I reach around to the back and put a pin in there and push it through until I can feel it here in the front, and then press it back again and close the pin. And now I've pinned the sleeve there just as if I had a pocket, when in fact this pair of pants just has a zipper on the side, and with the shirt hanging loose like that, it's a little less noticeable. So that way I can feel more comfortable if I'm around people who don't know me at all. They aren't particularly staring, and they may not even notice. I can show you here what it would be like if you didn't use any kind of clip or any kind of pin. As you can see, it would be a lot more noticeable to just have a loose sleeve like this. So if you have a sweater that is a little shorter than the sleeve, one trick is to just fold the sleeve around like that, and of course that won't stay unless you pin it. So taking a pin, and I often use two pins, I put the pin up through until I can see it on the other side, and then I often lift out the outer layer of the sweater so that the pin is only holding the inside layer, and close it. And yeah, I got it that time. The outer layer is free, but the inner layer is held by the pin, and that way it's held together up pretty far. And then I would put a metal clip here. You have to think about all of this in advance, because if you're here with your sleeve pinned and this metal clip inside, then you're ready to go. But if you decide to put on a jacket, then you have to figure it out. Are you going to unpin this sleeve? Are you going to pull out that metal clip and put this sleeve instead inside the jacket sleeve? I can show you how that works. Sometimes it's fine to just go ahead and put on the jacket over the sleeve. And as you can see, that sleeve is pretty flat, and it doesn't really make the jacket particularly bulky. So this works fine. And then if you want to just take off the jacket, you can. If you have instead, though, decided to unpin this sleeve because you know you're wearing the jacket all day and you've taken out that metal pin, then you want to be sure not to leave the sleeve loose. And I've forgotten sometimes, and suddenly I look down and I've got this loose sleeve. So you want to be sure to put that sleeve down inside the jacket sleeve. And there you are. Now you'll notice too that after you've done that, if you take the metal clip now, you can put it underneath so that you are clipping both the sweater and the jacket together. And that way you've got a clip that is holding it tight right here on your left side or on your right side. And that way, if the wind blows and your jacket blows like this, it'll still be held by the clip because it's held to the sweater under your jacket. So the other thing to think about is, like you can see here, this sleeve is too long. And so often you have to remember to roll up that sleeve so that it stays inside. There are a couple of different ways to do the jacket sleeve so that you feel comfortable and so that it isn't so noticeable that the sleeve is empty. And in this jacket, because the sleeve is pretty thick and because this pocket is up pretty high, I thought the best thing to do was to just leave the sleeve straight down, and then I pinned it inside. I've got two pins, one here and one there, that hold the sleeve so that it just stays on the jacket. So obviously this is something that people can notice, and it looks a little different, but it doesn't look quite as shockingly different as it would if you had the sleeve just sort of flying about. Now, if you've just taken off your coat and you need to hang it on a hanger, surely one of the most aggravating things that will happen to you is that you might be standing in a place that has hangers attached to the rod. And it's pretty difficult to work your coat up onto one of those hanging hangers. You might just give up and toss it on the hat rack above, or improvise by hanging it on the end of the rod in some way, or even just have somebody else help you. This doesn't happen all that often. So usually what you're dealing with is a hanger, a loose hanger. And so the easiest thing to do is to just put the coat right here and hold it with your chin. And take the hanger and go like this and like this, and then you're ready to hang it. There are a couple of things to do with jacket sleeves. Men's jackets are usually pretty standard, and you might find you'd want to do what I had on the blue jacket, which is to just have the sleeve straight down. But if you have a pocket that's located in a good place for it, you might want to just put the sleeve in the pocket like I've done here with this jacket. So it makes for a pretty nice symmetry when you have your hands in the pockets, and looks pretty natural. I go ahead and pin it just because it's so easy for this sleeve to catch on a doorknob or for the wind to blow it out, and then you're over there trying to work to put your sleeve back and you feel a little awkward about that. So I just pin it so that I don't have to worry about it at all. Obviously your sweater or your blouse or your shirt underneath can have its sleeve put down in the jacket sleeve without worrying about whether it will stick out the other end because this sleeve is in the pocket. I'll just show you too how it works to use the metal pin. You can put that metal pin right here inside the jacket, or you can go up under your shirt or blouse and use the metal pin by putting it right there at the top and pushing it down so that it holds these two together. This just shows you another option with jackets, which is that if you have a shorter jacket, it can often be an advantage because you can put the sleeve down past the end of the jacket and turn it up, just like I did for my sweater. And after you turn it up, you can pin it, just like that. And again, I pin it so that it comes all the way through, and then pull back from the pin the very outer layer, but the pin is still holding the inner layer of the sleeve right here. And then putting a metal clip inside. As you can see, if you don't have the metal clip in, you've got a sleeve that leaves a pretty big gap there. So I slide it down, and now it's pretty well held together. Another thing to remember is that if you want to put a brooch or a pin here, that can be really helpful. You would want to push it through and anchor it on some part of your bra, And the reason for that, again, is if the wind comes along and blows this jacket, you don't have the problem of the jacket flying back, even as far as the metal clip that you've used. And in most cases, you want to just leave that metal clip in the jacket itself, and you put the jacket off and on. So one way to make sure it doesn't blow clear off and come flying around on the other side of you, which can really be embarrassing if you're wearing a sleeveless shell or short sleeves, or even if you have long sleeves on, you feel like your clothing is sort of falling apart on you in public. So one way to deal with that is to just have a little brooch or pin here. Sometimes if you don't have a pin that shows, you don't want to have a pin that shows, you can do it right under the lapel here. You can just put a safety pin right under here, and it'll anchor the jacket. You don't want to always do that. You can just experiment, but sometimes it makes the jacket look really rigid, whereas if it's moving around on the right side, you want the left side to look about the same. So you just do whatever you're most comfortable with, but those are some of the choices. Another thing to think about is that if you have loss of your arm that goes all the way up to the shoulder, as I do, the shoulder bone that comes out here is not as rounded as your full shoulder. And so I use a shoulder pad all the time on this side. And I just slip it under my bra strap and pin it down. For a man, I think that would be a little more difficult. You might need to have it sewed or Velcroed to the inside of your shirt if you wanted to make sure that the shoulder was rounded. One problem with wearing a shoulder pad is that then when you put on a jacket that has a shoulder pad, you've got two on this side and it looks a little bit fuller. So you can just experiment with that. But the shoulder pads are easy to pick up in the store, and I have a lot of them that have come out of blouses or dresses, and I just use them just for the one side. Another thing about clothing is just the tying of scarves. There are lots of ways to tie a scarf. One of them that I find easiest is to take a long scarf like this and hold it in the middle and put it around my neck like this, and take the other end and pull it through and pull it up. And that's a really simple way that doesn't involve any tying, and it just stays. Another way to put a scarf on without complicated tying that takes a while or involves using your mouth while other people are around you is to just do what I'm doing here and put the scarf around. And obviously that's another way to just sort of wrap the scarf without having to tie it. What I wanted to show you here is that if you'd like to wear a dress that doesn't have any pockets and you're not quite sure what to do with the sleeve, you'll find that if you pin the dress sleeve down here somewhere on the skirt, it's really easy for this sleeve to get caught and to pull and tear the fabric. So it's hard to make that work. But another idea is that if the dress has a belt or even a skirt or pants that you're wearing a belt with, one idea is to just take this sleeve and bring it up under the belt. So as you can see there, the sleeve is being tucked under the belt and held. And when I pull the sweater down, that holds the sleeve right there. And you can pin it too if you want to make sure that it doesn't come out, or you want to make sure it stays at the right level. So that's just another way that you can handle the sleeve when there isn't any pocket and when you don't want to tear the fabric of your clothing. I can also show you a necklace, putting on necklaces. This necklace, I had a new clasp put on because it made it a lot simpler to close the necklace. It has a little sort of hook that slips over a ring, and that can work pretty well. Usually you're in front of a mirror when you're doing this, and so you can see what you're doing, but that's easy to hook. Okay. I'll show one other one. If you don't have that nice big hook that I showed on an ordinary necklace, you just take it and put it around your neck, leaving it so that this little end is hanging. And that will stay pretty still for you while you open this end, and you can close the clasp that way and go forward like this. And watching in the mirror, you can put it right on the ring and snap it. Another thing you can do when you want to sort of obscure the left side so it doesn't call attention to the sleeve there is that you can always drape a scarf over it. This isn't too convenient if you're doing something that involves a lot of moving around, but if you're going out to dinner or something like that, this can work. The other thing to consider is if you want to, you can tie the ends around like this and wear it like that, and you've got just sort of a shawl look. This is something that can really work in the summer when you're hot and you want to wear a sleeveless blouse or dress, and you're going to feel self-conscious if you have the sleeve, the open sleeve showing on one side. So it's easy to take a scarf like this that matches and drape it, and if you'd like to, you can turn it in at the top here, or just put a pin right here and anchor it to your bra strap, and then fold this over the pin. And that will stay, and you don't have to worry about it when you're moving around. And that's one way that you can really cool off in the summer. A couple possibilities for your watch. One is to have a watch which is really sturdy and waterproof, and put it on and leave it on. And you can literally take it off once a year when you need a new battery. If you would like to have a dressier watch or be able to take it off and on, then it's important to have a good expansion band. And because you're leaving that watch on all the time, and because you're doing everything with one hand, your watch is going to really get beat up. So it's worth having maybe one of those all steel bands if you're leaving your watch on all the time. And if you're wearing one with an expansion band, you should just make sure that it's a good sturdy band of the best material that you can. And the way to take it off and on is pretty simple. You find a little knob on the front of a dresser or a little hook that your towel is hanging on in the bathroom. In an emergency, you can hook it with your toe if you'd like to pull it off. But you just find some little hook that you can latch onto and slide it off. How to put on pantyhose. It's kind of a challenge for anybody. You want to make sure your nails are clipped because you can't roll the stocking up with your hands and just place it over your toes. You're going to use your foot to, dive right in here. So you just pull it like this, using your foot to go in all the way to the bottom. So now you're just using your foot as an anchor while you pull up the rest of the pantyhose. And what you do is just go from side to side like this. And after you've gone about over the knee, then it's time to go ahead and start the other side. And again, just putting your foot all the way to the bottom. And then you slide up, pulling around, and you just keep alternating from side to side like this. And then you alternate and go to the other leg and keep pulling around to the side, from side to side, and then alternate again. And as you keep doing that, it'll just pull up right over your legs.